Hey guys, we're here with Bazil here. He just got seventh place at the Winnipeg Regionals, going X1 and 1 with, you can maybe guess, ninjas. So this was pretty spicy. It took a lot of people by storm, including myself. Let's hear about some of your matchups before we get into the deck profile.
So I started the day playing against an interesting branded deck. That was my tie for the day. It was a really grindy match. It took us a while to get through game one. Game two, I played against Sprite, and that was a quick 2-0 sweep. I think this deck's pretty alright against Sprite. Game three was Madolce of all things, and I won that one because we had a very lengthy game one again, and we went to time on the second one. Game four was against the cameraman himself. Swift 2-0 against Kashtira, and the next
Mm-hmm.
two matches were also Kashtira. Following that one was a loss, and then following that one was another win from another one of our friends from our hometown. Overall, I think this deck felt great in the matchups I had because it really does predicate on some of the top decks, so I'm grateful for what I got to see today.
Awesome. So did you like kind of take it with the intention facing lots of cash, or did you feel like it
Yes,
had
oh, a
better
thousand
coverage than
percent.
just that?
I wanted to see a lot of cash and a little bit. I didn't want to see any branded off, frankly. And I did get to see half of my matchups for cash, so that felt really good.
Okay, awesome. Let's get into the profile then. Run us through some of the cards.
Right on. So these are pretty stock standard cards to see in a ninja profile. Running three Hanzo. He's your searcher. Let me flip these around for the camera.
Yeah.
So he picks up ninjutsu art if you normal summon him, which is normally what you want to do. And if you special summon him or flip summon him, he gets you a ninja from the deck. Don't think I searched a ninja with his effect all day. I was mostly just pulling out the good ninjutsu arts off of my normal summon. Three copies of Mitsu the Insect Ninja. She has a monster effect negate. It doesn't come up as often as most people think. It's mostly an extender to move into your more powerful fusion summons, or even to link off into Saizo, which I found really helpful today. And three copies of Tobari. It's a quick effect fusion summon during your opponent's main phase or battle phase. And I've maxed out on it since I started trying the deck because it's really good as both that fusion summon play to disrupt your opponent, but also to extend if you need to. Moving into the hand traps for monsters, I think a lot of people know that Ash is really good this format.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, Nib is kind of falling off. I didn't get it to use it once, notably not against Kashtira players because no one went for the 5 zone lock on me. So I found myself siding it out more often than not. But Ash was definitely an all-star. Here's where my ninja list differs from like literally everyone else, is that I prefer running 2 Geo over the 1. If you see the 1 Geo in hand, it shuts off a lot of your disruption. The double Book of Moon on Geo Summon is amazing, but if you draw him, there is no way to get him out of your hand during your opponent's turn. Drawing 2, it kind of hurts, but the deck doesn't necessarily need all 5 cards in your opening hand to play. So I felt a lot more comfortable playing 2 Geo here. The one of ninjas, I ran 1 Baku for recursion, 1 green ninja for further disruption on my opponent's turn, and 1 Kagero as it's really an extender and it helps you dodge things like I like it for Dogmatic Punishment or other cards that need to resolve on a monster that you targeted because she helps you dodge that from the grave. Regarding spells, this amazing go in second card. Notebook of Mystery lets you set one from deck and grave if your opponent controls a card. When I first built ninjas, I was on the combo variant, and I kind of turned a side eye to this because I didn't realize how powerful it was. But every time I resolve this card and put 2 cards on my field, it feels like I'm getting way too much advantage, especially with the certain cards that you can activate, like the Equip spell, the turn you set it. It's an amazing piece to keep going. And the ability to recur it with things like Baku and just keep building advantage on both players' turns has been very valuable. The anti-meta tech of Books of Moon and Books of Eclipse.
Nice ultimate rares.
Thank you. Thank you. I wonder where I got them. These cards just flip down what your opponent's trying to do. The only fusion deck in the meta right now is branded. So being able to flip down decks that are trying to link, like Mathmech, decks that are trying to exceed summon, like Kashtira, so on and so forth, even Sword Soul with their synchros. Sometimes you just book their 1 summon, and it might even turn off their turn. I didn't get to use a ton of books today, but every time I resolved it, it felt extremely impactful. And Book of Eclipse is the only reason I went to 43 cards, because I really wanted those extra flips. Furthermore, ninjas can interact with your opponent's face-down monsters. So this card feels especially powerful in this deck. The other spells I have in the deck, maxed out on Pot of Prosperity. Consistency is very important, and finding Hanzo off this is like striking actual gold because you're going to find your best normal summon and then pull up your best card to set with that. Some one-ofs in Ninjutsu Tool Iron Digger. This card is absolutely insane. Every time I read the text on it, I feel like it keeps getting better. The monster it equips to becomes a ninja, which is important because you can interact with your opponent's ninjas. But you can also banish a card from your graveyard to pop a card on the field. It is so multifaceted in that if you equip it to your opponent's monster and then pop that monster with its own effect, it'll get sent to the graveyard, triggering its graveyard effect to either add to your hand a banished ninja or special set it from banish pile. And being both destruction and an extender has made me even question going up to 2 on this card. I have had a situation today where I top decked it and it literally won me the game. This card is amazing, but I'm still on the fence about whether I want or not I want to. Its effects are only once per turn, but I can't say how good this card is enough. Another good card is Instant Fusion. We do have an in-theme level 5 fusion monster, as you already know. Being able to summon it just as an extender to make Maizen, which is your best end board on turn 1, very strong. But also just being able to use it as a piece of disruption if you're going second and just keep the game going is very nice. And 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army. This will search Hanzo, and you always want to see Hanzo in your opening hand, if you ask me. Finally, the traps. 3 Imperm, just another really good hand trap in the format. It shuts down decks if you know the key points to hit them at. Things like Kashtira, turning off their Unicorn to stop them from searching Birth, turning off things like Lubellion, so on and so forth. Like, Imperm can just win you games, steal you games if you hit the opponent at a crucial time. The Ninja traps are Dancing Leaves. This card is insane. Target as cost, tribute as effect to special summon any ninja from your deck. This can hit your opponent's set monsters or your opponent's ninjas as well as yours. So that's where that Iron Digger comes into play, where you steal their monster essentially and turn it into something like Geo to book 2 monsters on their field. That's a 3-for-1. It's insane. And 2 copies of Duplication. You could cut this down to 1. I considered that. I sided 1 copy out a lot. But the fact that this can put up to like 4 bodies on the field represents a lot of things, such as a Banish, a Book of Moon effect, and a Monster Negate, all with 1 card. Provided you don't get ashed, it can be all in. But being able to resolve this card can feel extremely powerful and can get you nibbed on your opponent's turn, which is probably a really good thing.
Awesome. That's the main?
That is the main. 43 cards. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll notice that it's very much just Jesse Cotton's list with an extra Geo. I'm still really happy with it.
Awesome.
1 Cross Sheep in the extra. A lot of the extra deck stuff you just don't make. This could be like a Lingereeb or anything, but I landed on Cross Sheep. But again, it does not matter because the things you are wanting to make are the ninjas. 2 copies of Saizo. 2 is really just to prevent getting hit with Kashtira effect to get it removed. Right. And his ability to, once per turn during your main phase, set a ninjutsu art can really create a grind game if your opponent can't remove it from the field. And more often than not, they can't, because while he's pointing to a monster, he can't be targeted by effects or for attacks. So he's kind of just this stagnant threat that if your opponent doesn't remove and they have to pass back to you, you're going to set another card and keep the grind game going. 1 copy of Gigantic Sprite. Never made it because it's essentially a Zeus package alongside Downward Magician. Blade Armor Ninja was something I actually didn't get to make today. Generally, I do make it to OTK a lot of people, and that does come up more often than not. However, today I found myself just really playing to remove all of my opponent's resources and really put me in a pole position. That said, this card is extremely powerful, and there are a lot of games where I do make it to end the game. Unfortunately, today that just didn't come up. And another one that's kind of a Zeus material to make, also an interesting piece that never comes up because, again, you're mostly making the ninjas, is Constellar Ptolemy M7. The gimmick behind this is, I'd imagine, I never do it, is you use any 2-type ninjas to make Maizen, which is one of our fusions. And if you have 4 ninjas on the field, you can turn them both into Maizens, turn the Maizens into Constellar, and then turn the Constellar into Zeus. But it rarely comes up. In fact, it really never has. The Xyz materials are bait for unicorn effects and pot cost. Ultimate Great Insect, I'm sure everyone knows, if you're familiar with ninjas, you can very easily make it by equipping Mitsu, because she has 2,000 defense with your equip spell, and that's his condition to special summon from extra.
Did you make this today at all?
I made it
curious.
once.
Okay.
And that's mostly because it's hard to get off the field because it can't be destroyed by battle. It's mostly for the Labyrinth matchup to crash into their big monsters because, it can't be destroyed by battle. Incidentally, if there's a face-up field spell, it can pop all your opponent's monsters during the battle
Another
phase.
Kashtira edge there.
But for the most part, it's very much fringe, but it's nice to have if you know your opponent's deck is going to have a field spell, because it gives you an interesting option to play into. This one, it's one of the ones that I have to flop on whether or not I'm going to banish with Pot of Prosperity, but it does stay in more often than not. And lastly is the most important cards are the Ninja Fusions. So this guy is a very simple one. Yagura Maru, the Armor Ninja, is when he's summoned or flipped face up, targets a card on the field, banishes a ninja or ninjutsu art from your hand, field, or grave except itself, and it just simply banishes it. And a simple removal effect that you can access on your opponent's turn through Tobari, or even being able to set it after it's been properly fusion summoned with Tobari, and then flipping it face up on your turn, just gives you this weird grind game where you can keep removing your opponent's card with this one fusion monster that somehow came out and keeps coming back. And you have to max out on these because you do play multiple fusions in your game. Multiple of each of the fusions, because there is the second fusion, Maizen, and this is your ideal end board, is Maizen in like 2 sets. When your opponent activates a card or effect, he'll special summon any ninja from your deck, and that's the most important line of text on him, because he'll access your Geo. Your opponent does anything, you're like, okay, I'm going to book a moon 2 of your monsters, and they're never coming face back up, which is insane in this format. Until another fusion deck takes the top spot, I believe Ninjas has an amazing stand against everything else because you can book their key plays. Furthermore, he lets your ninjas attack directly while he's face up on the field, meaning that no matter what your opponent might have set or in play, you're always presenting a threat for lethal. And again, you have to max out on all the ninjas because you're probably making 2 to 3 Maizens in a game. And that would be it for the extra.
Awesome. So now onto the side. I guess before you go into it, was it used optimally? Like, did it come up during the matches like you expected?
The side deck,
that you built it for?
I've had a really weird side deck since I've been playing this deck, and generally they always all come up, and I think I've sided in every card in the side deck. So yeah, I'd like to say they come up, and a lot of them are very niche for very specific matchups. Like I said about the fusion decks, they're the hardest for this deck to deal with because a big point of removal for it is flipping your opponent's monsters face down and hoping that does it. So for those fusion decks, they use, like, branded, it's all light and dark monsters. So a very common strategy in ninjas is using Kawakimera Drago alongside Ninjutsu Art of Super Transformation. You get to 2 for 1 by both sending one of your ninjas and one of your opponent's monsters to the grave, and special summoning, I think, is a dragon, dinosaur, or sea serpent from your deck, the level equal to or less than the sent monster's total. So if your opponent activates something like Branded Fusion, a Bestial Effect, or even in one case today, Eldritch Effect to add to hand and special summon, you can quick effect by using the trap, essentially, send 2 monsters on the field, special summon Kawakimera Drago, and then that effect won't go off. And that can literally shut out certain decks. Like, Branded cannot play through Drago. By the time they pass back to you, you probably have enough resources on board to kill them. So this comes in against those all the time. I run this card, and I swear I sided in every match if I'm going second. It protects your back row while it's face up on the field.
I think I recognize that guy.
Oh yeah, he's on the mat right here. Maybe that's why I run it. So this is insurance against Lightning Storm because you need your back row to play. I don't find a lot of people on Lightning Storm these days. You summon him with your ninjutsu art of Dancing Leaves. However, I've never had to chain Dancing Leaves to get rid of one of my monsters to summon White Dragon Ninja because it has never come up. It still goes in the deck just on the off chance my opponent Lightning Storms. Otherwise, it's a gigantic brick because you never want to see your high-level ninjas in hand. Speaking of high-level ninjas, another interesting one I run is Yellow Dragon Ninja. Now, luckily, I didn't play against any back row today, but his effect is Quick Effect. You can send a ninja and ninjutsu art from your field or hand, one of each, to pop 2 back row. Okay. And against Labyrinth, if you're going first and you can get this guy out by the time they pass turn to you, on their end phase, you're removing 2 of their cards, and sometimes that just shuts off a back row strategy. Same for Trap Tricks, and in some fringe cases, you can hit the Kashtira field spell or even their Birth, and that might shut them off. But I didn't play against any back row heavy decks today, so I never really had a need to make Yellow Dragon Ninja. Another more defensive card is 3 copies of Lancia, and I stand by this. I think Evenly Matched is the most insane card in this format. Not a lot of decks are ending on hard negates except for Sprite, really.
Yeah,
So if I'm going first, I always put in this guy and this guy because I want to stop my opponent from either Lightning Storming me or evenlying me. And it finally worked out for me in my last game today where I got to Lancia in response to an evenly matched.
Right.
And that just made it so that, okay, my opponent just lost their battle phase. I have all my effects to play on their main phase 2. And seeing Lancia in your hand in games 2, just it's this like comfortable feeling where it's like, okay, I can set up and not really worry about my opponent's going second cards. The last few cards include 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. I used to be on Cosmics. I like the Duster because it's like a 1 for X, depending on how much back row your opponent has. And again, I already have the Yellow Dragon Ninja to clean up some of the back row. 3 Evenly Matched. Again, I think this card's insane in the format. And if you're going second, like you just side it in. And sometimes you can 1 for like 7 your opponent. Like it happened to me today. I played against Sprite Adventure. And I'd already baited out the Griffin with Nib. He didn't have Carrot on field. So when I went to my turn, battle phase, end of battle phase, he lost everything. Like he lost a Gin Buster, a starter, like his field was gone. And then I proceeded to win. I like an Appointer. Again, this deals with things like Evenly or Lightning Storm, or even can shut off your opponent. I sided it in every time I went first. Didn't see it at all today. I have seen it before in other games other than today, but unfortunately not today. I still think it's a really good card. And lastly, 3 Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. Now, unfortunately, I only got to play it once today.
Oh, okay.
When I did flip it, it shut off my opponent's Kashtira effects, which is exactly what you want it for.
Right.
However, the one problem is it shuts off a couple of your cards. Like your Gia won't be able to flip stuff, your Maizen won't be able to search. But I think that's a perfect trade-off for being able to shut down a lot of what your opponents are trying to do. And I think it's a really unique floodgate for the current format. I think the other deck this really hits, and I think I lied to you because I did use it a second time against a branded player, which is the second thing it really hurts.
Yeah,
and incidentally, it also hits Labyrinth because they need their level 8s to attack and use their effects, and being able to say no to that can really slow down their game plan. So I'm really enjoying this card.
Definitely. Well, solid deck profile. Congrats on the top.
Thank you so much. This is my first regional top and my first regional, so I'm actually super excited about it. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Joshua Chicago Fader. He's the guy who gave me the first ed Alti Hanzos, and I told him that I would be playing the deck, which is the reason I have them, because he didn't want them to go to some schmuck trying to flip them for a penny.
Yeah,
so
you didn't let him
thank you
down.
so much.
Oh,
sure. No, clearly I did
great.
something with them.
Awesome. Well, great job. And to everyone else, stay tuned for more deck profiles. We will have a couple more. Take care.
See ya.